Well, represents the 10th Congressional District of Michigan, recognizes Mr. Graves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. Good to see you again, and I appreciate you spending time with us today. I understand a number of my colleagues have grilled you on criteria related to grants, and I do. I'm not going to rehash it all, but I'll just go in and say I think it's really, really important, as you and I have discussed in the past, that the criteria that actually advances the mission of the Department of Transportation in regard to addressing traffic solutions and others need to be the priority of criteria that are used. I'm concerned that there's been new criteria that's been introduced that is outside the confines of the law that I think distorts the awarding of grants. And of course, an example of that, the state of California has received about 17% of all of the grants under the discretionary programs. And obviously that figure is very high. And I'm concerned about the direction or just how the I guess, lack of criteria or lack of specificity, some of the criteria allows for a distortion in terms of where some of these grants go. But more importantly, because I know you've covered this a good bit today, Mr. Secretary, I wanted to talk to you about a somewhat related topic, and that's my home state of Louisiana. We are out here trying to build infrastructure projects, and like many states, and I know you've talked about this, the underinvestment in infrastructure that's happened for decades and decades. We in the last 5 years or so have been able to pull in some dollars on projects that have been neglected for decades. One of them, a really important project at home, it's called the COMEET project, and this is a Corps of Engineer project outside your purview, but it's a really important message here. The project cost went from $342 million to $970. We have another project that's down just outside New Orleans called the West Shore Project. That one went from $760 million to $3.7 billion. My point here is that when you look at everything that's been done under this administration, whether it's American Rescue Plan, which was nearly $2 billion, the CHIPS Act, hundreds of billions of dollars, while laudable goal in that case became way too expensive and ancillary things added to it. The Inflation Reduction Act that I think got way out of bounds, distorting economics in regard to energy investments, and we're now seeing 40% higher energy costs for Americans. And which one am I missing? IRA, CHIPS, ARP, and of course, IIJA, one of your favorites. And I heard during IIJA debate, and of course it being signed into law, all these people celebrating the increase in investment. Mr. Secretary, if project costs are tripling, in two cases of the projects that we're building right now, and this isn't, I didn't go cherry pick, those are the projects. I can go through and find probably 10 transportation projects that have more than doubled, and this isn't me cherry picking either. So it's hard for me to understand how this is a win with all of the other investments that were made, spending trillions and trillions of dollars that devalued the dollar, that have contributed to energy costs going up, and now we can't even build the projects we were building before. And the way I look at it is any perceived increase in investment under IIJA is actually a decrease based on what we're seeing at home. And I'm curious if you care to reflect on that and what you're seeing across the country.
So I think first of all, the reality of the increase in project costs is real. It's a concern. It's one of the main threats to the successful implementation of this bill and something we think about every day. I would challenge the view that anything we do to invest in the productive capacity of this country is necessarily inflationary, and would suggest on the contrary that one of the things that creates inflationary pressure is sometimes a bottleneck or deficiency in our built infrastructure that can only be addressed with good investment. When we talk about the attention we're paying to ports or bridges or certainly things like rail infrastructure, I view this as something where part of the return on investment comes in the form of reducing some bottlenecks that can in fact contribute to inflationary pressures. But I agree with you that the value of a project is not the dollars in, but the outcomes.
I agree that and I don't want to be perceived as saying that we shouldn't make investments because it's going to cause inflation. Please don't interpret it that way. I mean, look, Mr. Burleson wants a Ferrari, but he drives a Chevrolet. And in some cases, you got to prioritize. and make sure that you're truly spending what is appropriate and you're prioritizing the dollars. Look, I just have a little bit of time left, and something else that I know you and I share concerns with is the FAA. We've seen a number of safety issues. Right now, we have 20% of the agency's leadership positions that remain vacant. I appreciate, as you and I have discussed, the FAA nominee, but just curious if you could perhaps quickly reflect on the vacancies in the top positions.
Well, you know, the most important way to address that, of course, is the swift confirmation of our
But most of these aren't confirmed positions.
Say again?
Most of these are not confirmed positions.
That's right, yeah, and you know, in addition to the people who have been performing sometimes in acting capacities, we have the confirmed positions, which I think ought to have a hand in shaping the leadership team. But just to be clear, there's no empty chairs there. The work is getting done. At the same time, we would benefit from having confirmed, or we're not confirmed, permanent people in each of their roles. We hope to have more announcements soon on that. And of course, in addition to that top group up there, we're also concerned about just making sure we fill those rank and file positions of the air traffic controllers, which is one of many reasons we're very hopeful that this chamber can avoid a shutdown that would stop our training.
Look forward to continuing discussion, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.